Good morning. I'm going to read you a story this morning called I Am Leonardo da Vinci. And this book was written by Brad Meltzer and illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. Okay, so we'll start you out here. I am Leonardo da Vinci. I was born in Italy in a small town called Vinci. People think Da Vinci is my last name, but it's just where I'm from. In Italian, Da Vinci means from Vinci. Back in the 1400s, Italy was one of the most exciting places to live, and something called the Renaissance was happening. And people started using art and science, architecture, and even politics to see things in brand new ways. Look at the carvings, look at the silks, look at the paintings. As a young boy, I went hiking one day and found this amazing cave. At first, I tried peeking in, but the cave was too dark. I bent the other way, but still couldn't see anything, and the closer I looked, the darker it seemed, like the shadows themselves would swallow me whole. Right there, I felt two things: fear and desire, because I really wanted to know what was in there. Standing at that cave, I made my decision. If you want to learn something new, you have to follow your curiosity. The rewards are unimaginable. I found a whale fossil embedded in the wall. To see a mighty creature like that, I realized just how powerful nature can be. Back then, the richest kids with the proper background went to the best schools, but I didn't. By teaching myself, I was more open to new experiences and ideas, and as a result, I didn't think quite like everyone else. I didn't even write like everyone else. I was left-handed, which back then was considered weird and odd. It may seem like secret code, but it wasn't. It was just a way to keep the ink from smudging, which was a common practice back then. I wasn't the best student. I'd get let me go back here. Instead of writing left to right, I wrote right to left, drawing each letter backward like this. Then I would use a mirror to read it. Okay, it may seem like secret code, but it wasn't. It was just a way to keep the ink from smudging, which was a common practice back then. Sorry guys, it's confusing. I wasn't the best student. I'd get easily distracted and bored unless I was doing something creative like art. Whoa, you drew that? You're pretty good. I did. I still have a lot to learn. When I was 14, my father showed some of my drawings to one of the best local artists, Andre del Verrocchio. I became his apprentice, which is a fancy way of saying he became my teacher. Your son drew that? I'm astonished. He did. Pretty good, huh? He taught me how to mix paints, draw and sculpt from models, and work with machinery on large projects. Most important, in Verrocchio's workshop, there were people talking about anatomy, geometry, architecture, and antiques. Plus, there were books on every subject. You can put a circle inside a square like this. My first preserved art was a shield I painted for someone. I'll put a monster on it like a dragon that breathes fire and spits poison. To make it realistic, I used more than paint. I took real body parts from lizards, snakes, bats, crickets, grasshoppers, and even butterflies and attached them piece by piece. Looks real, right? The smell was so bad, my father kept the shield and bought a new one for the client. What's that smell? Art, says Leonardo. It wasn't my best work, but the shield did sell and was eventually owned by the Duke of Milan. You don't become an artist overnight. It takes practice and patience, drawing things over and over. Again, paint it again. In my art, I wanted things to look like they did in real life. So I'd practice drawing drapes and plenty of folds and shadows. The key was mastering this. Chiaroscuro, which means light and dark in Italian, and explains how I use light and shadows to make things look real. And two, sfumato, which means making the lines blurry so it looks even more realistic. If you do it right, you get this. Here's one of his pictures, which is quite detailed. That's my drawing. Was I perfect? No, not at all. I'd get so distracted and sometimes felt so alone that I didn't finish many of my paintings. And when I did finish, I didn't think the work was very good. Another bad one. And she's saying, "What? You think that's bad?" No matter what I was working on, I'd carefully examine each subject, studying every detail. I was especially interested in birds. Look how a bird's wings are more curved at the front. Is that how they fly? What do their tails do? Is that how they steer? He really looks closely at things, doesn't he? My greatest strengths were curiosity and observation, and everything I saw I'd put in my notebooks. Look at the dragonfly. When it flies, its front and wings are higher than its rear wings are lower. He really wants to learn about flying, doesn't he? I wanted to learn about everything, and each day was an opportunity to observe something new. I'd fill notebooks with drawings, ideas, art, and anything else I found interesting, including long lists of things that I wanted to do. How did I find the answers? By observing every detail, and at the top of Monte Rosa, I figured out why the sky is blue. It's light reflecting off particles in the air. The more questions you ask, the more answers that you will find. Over time, in addition to being an artist, I became an architect, and an engineer, and a musician. I designed a new instrument, a cross between an organ and violin, the viola organista, which is a really fun thing to say. Organ, and violin, and the viola organista. Viola organista. Try saying it. And I was a scientist and a dentist. Wait, did I mention I was a scientist? Look at this human arm. When it bends just right, it resembles a bird's wing. Isn't that beautiful? And of course, I was also an inventor. Every new piece of information led to a new breakthrough. Check out my designs: the tank, the submarine, scuba gear, and a hang glider. An early try at a helicopter? This tent covered with cloth is an early parachute, even though no one has ever flown before. And speaking of flying, check out these wings based on bats. Whoa. What are you doing now? Trying to figure out how the face works. Which muscles open your eyes? Which ones raise your brows? And which ones create the perfect smile? This is my most famous painting, the Mona Lisa. I worked on it for 16 years, carrying it with me until the day I died. For over a decade, I repaint it. I'd repaint it, trying to fill it with every amazing new thing I learned about humans and nature. Today, people wonder who she was. She wasn't anyone famous. She was just like the rest of us, ordinary and amazing, and full of mysteries and questions, just like the world around us. In my life, people call me a genius, a Renaissance man. They also said I was weird and odd. That's not a bad thing. Nothing amazing happens by thinking like everyone else. Look closely at nature. No two trees are the same. No two humans are either. That means no one will see the world as you do. That's not weird or odd. It's beautiful. Do what hasn't been done before. Build what hasn't been built before when you do. No one will be able to look away. Today, there are 7,200 pages of Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks filled with ideas about art, flight, geology, botany, anatomy, biology, and mechanics. Back in 1994, Bill Gates bought one of those notebooks for $30 million. Throughout his life, Leonardo was obsessed with flight. He loved birds so much, he'd buy them and immediately set them free. The very last thing Leonardo wrote in his notebook was a math problem. He left it unfinished and wrote, etc., because the soup is getting cold. Some of his ideas didn't become realities for another 500 years, and his theories on the human heart were finally proven right in the 1960s. And his wings, they inspired Bill Finger and Bob Kane's design for Batman. It's true. Without Leonardo da Vinci, there would be no Batman. And Leonardo says, I love many things. Whatever your passions are, follow them. Sometimes crazy ideas are the best ideas, and even the ones that fail. My wings didn't help me fly. My scuba gear didn't let me breathe underwater. My pre-helicopter never took off. But over time, as technology and innovation caught up with my ideas, every single one of my ideas worked. Stay curious, ask questions, look closely, and always be daring. I am Leonardo da Vinci, and I know that new ideas are beautiful. Wisdom is the sustenance and truly dependable wealth of the mind. And then they have some pictures of tourists photographing the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, and a self-portrait in chalk at age 50 that he did. Vinci, Italy. And this is a whole timeline of his life, which is very interesting. And that, my friends, is the end. So I would love to hear what you guys think about this story. It has some really great, I think, feedback about remembering to stay curious and ask questions. And one of the things that Leonardo da Vinci did in his life was that he had things that he was very interested in, and he stayed curious and he asked questions. He wanted to know, how does a bird's wing work? How does it fly? And so he looked really closely to see, what was working. So I just encourage you guys to stay curious. I know that this is a challenging time, but really try to embrace those things that you're interested in and nurture those things, because they're important. Your ideas and your interests are important, just like you're important. So I hope that you enjoyed this story. It's a little bit longer, but I hope you have a great week. And this is we're getting down there. These are the last couple weeks. So take good care, and I will talk to you soon.